support the family. And he emailed me back and said, I'd really like to be there, but tonight Tom DeLay is dancing the cha-cha. It's my humbling moment from the road. And there's something about politicians, too. I did another event last year, and I did it in Cincinnati, and this was when Al Gore and Mike Huckabee both had books out, so they were on tour, and I was in Cincinnati at this bookstore, and Al Gore was there on a Tuesday, I was there on a Wednesday, and then Mike Huckabee was there on a Thursday, so I was sandwiched between, you know, press agents and Secret Service, and I'm just this humble writer, and I walk in, and they said, would you like to see the green room? And I'm thinking, green room? And evidently both of these politicians, as part of their tour requirements, needed a green room, like they're backstage on the Jay Leno show or something. And it's a little bookstore, they don't have a green room. So what they had done is they had taken a large janitorial closet, they took everything out, they literally painted it green, and they put a chair in there. So it was this little space, so I got to sit in, you know, Al Gore's green room, which I knew was, you know, previously had mops and things. Well, okay, what else can we talk about? I know, this is, I was talking about humbling moments from the road, and I have to ask this one, there's so many of you here, and I'm always curious about this, and this pertains to interviews that authors do, and Hotel is my debut novel, and so with that first book, you sometimes can generate a little attention, and so I've been very fortunate to do a fair number of interviews, you know, television and print, but especially radio. I do a ton of radio interviews, and the funny thing about radio interviews is I do them all on my cell phone, because that's how you do them these days. And my very first interview was an NPR interview with Scott Simon, and I got really excited, and I had this vision of going into a steel tower and being behind the frosted glass with the old school ear goggles on, with the producer that says, you know, 3, 2. And no, it was just me on my cell phone. And I was in a hotel, and I'm always doing these. I'll be in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'll be on the air on my cell phone in some hotel room, and I'll be on the air live in Lexington, Kentucky. And the interesting thing about radio interviews, especially the NPR interviews, is they're recorded live to tape. And so I'll be on the air live, and then they disseminate these. They pass them around. And so I'll get emails later that will be like, I love the interview you did in Topeka. And I'm thinking, I've never been to Topeka. It must have been one of those interviews. And so I did an interview not too long ago in Portland, Oregon. And I was in my hotel room on my trusty cell phone. And there was this, you know, and it was live radio. And there was this tremendous moment of live radio that went just like this. Housekeeping! And it's happened to me twice now. And I had the little thing hanging from the door, which I've learned is strictly advisory. There's no enforcement of that little mechanism. So if you happen to be listening to NPR, and there's this great interview where this woman brings me fresh towels, please email me and let me know how that sounds. Dying to hear that interview. And another interesting thing about interviews, and this, it's a peculiar thing, is that I do get asked very similar questions. And I tend to get asked the brick and mortar aspects of the book. I get asked the quantitative things pertaining to Hotel and the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. And part of that is an artifact of having a publicist who sends out a great press kit and shepherds the discussion, and you know, also creates the illusion the person doing the interviews read the book. You know, I never really want to know. But I get asked about the Japanese internment, obviously, or I get asked about race relations between Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans. Occasionally there'll be an intrepid line of questioning about the Seattle jazz scene or something like that. And we'll do Q&A, and I'm happy to talk at length about any of those subjects. But now that the book's been out for a little while, I do get a fair number of emails from readers And the feedback I get from readers is completely different than the feedback I get in an interview setting. The feedback I get from readers is much more qualitative. You know, it's very, the emails I get tend to be like, you made me cry. You know, it's very heartfelt, or I'm still crying, or I'm on Prozac, I can't stop crying. It's very touching, and I see the timestamp on the emails, which will read, you know, 2:37 a.m. And I love that because I'm an author, but I'm still a reader. And I remember those moments, and we've all had these moments where you're 400 pages into a 500-page book, and it's, you know, it's 12:30 in the morning on a Sunday night, and you're just thinking, I'm calling in sick tomorrow because, you know, I'm going to finish this book. And that's really gratifying as an author, because to see readers appreciating the emotional currency that's spent in the book, whether that's the bitter of the internment or the sweet of the love story, it's really satisfying. And I don't read my reviews, but I occasionally glance at the headlines. And I saw the headline in the Daily Iowan, and it just read, "This book will rupture your tear ducts." Which, I know, it doesn't sound like such a positive thing, does it? Sounds like a class action lawsuit waiting to happen. But it's really cool, because if you strip away the exterior of the story, there's a lot of historical things. There's the Japanese internment. There's race relations. There's a father and son story. If you pull all those things apart, the nucleus of the story is really a very simple love story. And I never get asked about the love story in an interview, ever. And that's because love stories are these uncommon creatures. They're very strange in that we react to them differently as people. We bring our own emotional baggage to the party, and we kind of react. And that's a coarse way of saying, with love stories, you tend to get them or you don't. And by that I mean, if we all went to a movie, a tearjerker love story kind of movie, when the lights come on, you can look around and you can really see the two camps emerge. You know, you'll see that one group that's, you know, fishing in their purse for Kleenex, and then you'll see the other group that is just looking around bewildered, like, that was a waste of $8, you know. Where was the car crash? Where was the gun battle? And I knew, not just as an author, but as a person, where I fell on that emotional